boy stepped off the bus, his small bag slung over one shoulder. He looked up at the tall gates of the academy, feeling a mix of awe and fear. This place was different from anything he had known. The walls were tall, painted in cream and gold, and the windows reflected the sunlight like they were made of mirrors. The driveway was wide and smooth, lined with trees that had been carefully trimmed. He had heard stories about the academy, stories about students who were talented beyond imagination, students who came from families with money and influence. And now he was here, a boy who had moved through foster homes all his life, carrying nothing but a few clothes, a small notebook, and a deep love for music. He had spent countless nights in his small, temporary rooms, imagining what it would be like to play on a real piano, to feel the keys beneath his fingers and the sound of the music filling a large room. That dream had carried him through some of the hardest times. Now, as he walked up the stone steps, his heart pounded. He had earned a scholarship to this place because someone had believed in his talent, even when he hadn't believed in himself. Inside the academy, the hallways were wide and polished. The walls were decorated with portraits of past students who had gone on to achieve great things. Each step echoed as he walked, and he could hear laughter and voices coming from other rooms. Some students were gathered in groups, talking and laughing, wearing uniforms that looked expensive. They glanced at him as he passed, and he felt their eyes measuring him, wondering where he belonged. He tried to ignore them, focusing instead on finding the music room, the place where he would spend most of his days. The music room was at the end of a long corridor. When he pushed the door open, he was met with the sight of rows of pianos, shiny and black, each one waiting to be played. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, making the room feel alive. For a moment he just stood there, taking it all in. This was more than he had ever imagined. This was a place where dreams could come true. He walked to one of the pianos and ran his fingers over the keys. The sound was rich and full, far better than any piano he had touched before. He closed his eyes and let his fingers find the notes he knew so well, the melodies that had kept him company through lonely nights. The music seemed to fill the room, and for a while he forgot about everything else. The other students, the judgment, the fear. There was only him and the piano, and the music he loved. Days passed, and he began to learn the rhythms and routines of the academy. The teachers were strict but fair. They expected perfection, but they also noticed effort. He was careful to listen and observe, trying to fit in while still holding on to the joy he felt when he played. Some students were friendly, offering small smiles or words of encouragement, while others were distant, keeping their distance as if he were invisible. He learned quickly that talent alone didn't guarantee acceptance here. He would have to prove himself, not just with skill, but with courage and determination. One afternoon, while practicing a particularly difficult piece, he noticed a small man in the corner of the room watching him. The man smiled and nodded, then quietly left. Later, a teacher explained that it was the janitor, someone who had worked at the academy for decades and had a way of seeing talent when others overlooked it. The janitor often stayed behind, listening to students play, sometimes leaving little notes of encouragement. The boy felt a quiet connection to this man, someone who understood the power of music and the strength it could give to a young heart. As weeks went by, he faced challenges he had never imagined. The other students were talented, some unbelievably so. They played with confidence and precision, their fingers moving effortlessly over the keys. Sometimes he felt small and inadequate, doubting whether he belonged. But each night, when the academy was quiet and empty, he would return to the music room and practice until his fingers ached. He played not to compete, but to express himself, to let the music carry his feelings when words could not. There were moments when he would glance at the other students and see their polished instruments, their well-coached performances, and he would feel a pang of envy. But he reminded himself that he had something they did not. A history full of struggle, a heart full of stories, and a passion for music that had never been broken. That thought kept him going, giving him the courage to try again, to practice a difficult passage over and over until it felt right. One day, a teacher approached him after class. She had watched him play and asked if he would perform in front of a small group of students later that week. His stomach twisted with nerves, Performing in front of others was different from playing alone. Every mistake felt amplified, every note judged. But he agreed, knowing that this was an opportunity to show what he could do. The days leading up to the performance were filled with anxious practice, but also with moments of joy, when he would find a melody that seemed to flow naturally, as if the piano itself was responding to his heart. On the day of the performance, he walked into the room, the other students seated and waiting. He took a deep breath and sat at the piano, his fingers trembling slightly. Then he began to play. The music started softly, almost hesitantly, but as he continued, it grew stronger, more confident. The other students listened in silence, some leaning forward, drawn into the emotion of the music. When he finished, there was a moment of quiet, followed by a few polite claps. It wasn't a standing ovation, but it was a start. He felt a flicker of pride and a renewed sense of determination. That evening, as he walked back to his small room in the academy, he thought about how far he had come. He had entered this world as an outsider, unsure if he belonged. Now, he had taken a small step toward finding his place, not through wealth or connections, but through something that was entirely his own. His talent, his perseverance, and his love for music. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be obstacles, rivals, and moments of doubt. But he also knew that he had something stronger than any challenge. A heart that would not give up, a soul that could find beauty even in the hardest of times. And so, he lay down that night, listening to the distant echoes of music from the practice rooms, dreaming of the performances to come. For the first time in a long time, he felt hope. He felt that maybe, just maybe, he had found a place where he could belong, where his dreams could take flight, and where his music could be heard not just as sound, but as a voice from his heart. As the days passed at the academy, the boy slowly began to notice the subtle ways in which the other students measured him. It wasn't loud or obvious. It was in the whispers that stopped when he walked by, in the sideways glances that followed him from the music room to the dining hall. He tried not to let it bother him, but it weighed on him in small ways, like tiny drops of water on his shoulders. He reminded himself that he was here to learn, to grow, and to follow his love for music, not to chase acceptance. Yet he could not deny that it hurt. One student in particular seemed to notice his talent the most. A boy who was confident, polished, and clearly used to being at the top. From the first day, he had been in the spotlight, praised by teachers for his precision and technique. When the boy began to play, the other students could hear that there was something different about him, something raw and honest in the music. His fingers moved with a delicate precision, but the emotion in his playing made even the best performances feel ordinary. It was the kind of talent that could not be taught, a natural ability to touch hearts rather than just execute notes. The confident student felt a strange mix of admiration and unease. For the first time, someone from outside his privileged circle could hold attention the way he had always been used to. Slowly, a sense of rivalry began to grow, quiet at first, almost unnoticed. The confident student began to test boundaries, making small remarks when the boy played, suggesting that maybe he didn't understand certain pieces, or that his interpretation was unusual. Others would chuckle or nod along, reinforcing the idea that the newcomer didn't quite fit. Despite this, the boy refused to let it shake him. He continued to practice, sometimes for hours in the music room after everyone else had gone home. The janitor, who had noticed him from the start, would occasionally leave a small note by the piano. "Keep going, your music is your voice." Or even a single note played with heart can change a room. These little notes gave him courage. They reminded him that he was not alone, that someone outside the circle of judgment could see the value of what he was doing. As the rivalry grew, the boy also discovered unexpected friendships. A few students, quietly supportive, offered him tips or shared pieces they liked. They didn't mock or compete. They simply wanted to learn and enjoy music together. These small connections became a lifeline, reminders that not everyone in the academy was against him. He began to feel a sense of belonging, tiny though it was, and it strengthened his resolve to focus on his music. In one of the larger practice rooms, he would often lose himself in complex pieces, feeling the music pour out of him, transforming the room into a place of solitude and peace. But sometimes he would catch the confident student watching him from the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. At first, this made him nervous. He feared criticism or sabotage, but he gradually learned to see the observation as a challenge rather than a threat. It pushed him to play better, to explore pieces with more emotion and depth. Music became not just a refuge, but a space for growth and resilience. The Academy also held small competitions and recitals to help students develop confidence. When the boy participated, he noticed how differently the students treated each other. Some competed fiercely, eyeing every performance with judgment, while others offered encouragement. Each performance brought a mix of excitement and fear. He learned to sit with his nerves, to channel them into the music, letting every note tell a story. His performances were not about perfection but about truth, and gradually, both teachers and students began to take notice. One afternoon, the boy overheard some of the confident students' friends talking. They questioned whether the newcomer really deserved his scholarship, suggesting that someone from a wealthy family should have earned the spot. He felt a familiar sting of shame and anger but refused to respond outwardly. Instead, he let his music speak for him. That night, he stayed longer in the music room than usual, experimenting with a piece he had been practicing for weeks. His fingers traced the keys with care, creating layers of sound that seemed to float in the air, carrying both pain and hope. Through the long evenings, he discovered the power of improvisation. When he made a mistake, he didn't panic. Instead, he found a new path in the music, letting his emotions guide him. Each session taught him more than any lesson could: resilience, creativity, and the quiet confidence that came from trusting himself. He began to notice that even the confident student, who once seemed untouchable, would occasionally pause and listen, drawn in by the emotion in his playing. But the Academy was not without its challenges. Some teachers focused on technique and perfection, giving feedback that felt harsh or discouraging. The boy learned to balance these critiques with his own sense of musical truth, taking what was helpful and leaving behind what stifled his creativity. Slowly, he developed a style that was uniquely his own, a blend of discipline and heart, skill and feeling. Outside of practice, life at the Academy was sometimes lonely. During meals or breaks, he often found himself sitting quietly, observing the other students who laughed and shared stories about their families. He didn't have that, and he sometimes felt the weight of being different. But he also carried a quiet pride, knowing that his journey had been harder in ways others couldn't understand. Every challenge he had faced had brought him here, to a place where his talent could shine despite the obstacles. One day, a teacher approached him with a kind smile, noticing the intensity with which he practiced. She offered advice on interpreting a piece for an upcoming recital, emphasizing not just the notes but the emotion behind them. Her encouragement felt different from the standard critique. It was personal, thoughtful, and inspiring. For the boy, moments like this were reminders that his hard work mattered, that someone recognized both his talent and his heart. As the rivalry with the confident student continued, it became less about envy and more about mutual recognition. Each time the boy played, he felt a silent challenge to rise higher, to explore deeper emotions, and to let his music speak louder than words ever could. The confident student, in turn, began to show subtle signs of respect, nodding in approval or pausing to listen with genuine interest. Competition remained, but it was tempered by an understanding that talent was not just about technical skill. It was about what one could bring from within. By the end of the term, the boy had grown stronger not just as a pianist but as a person. He had faced whispers, doubt, and quiet rivalry, yet he had emerged with confidence that came from knowing his own worth. Music had been his guide, his companion, and his teacher. Through every challenge, he had discovered the power of perseverance, the importance of trust in oneself, and the beauty of expressing emotion through sound. In those first months at the Academy, the boy realized that success would not be measured solely by trophies or accolades. It would be measured by the courage to continue despite obstacles, by the strength to remain true to oneself, and by the ability to touch others with honesty and passion. And as he sat at the piano late into the evenings, He knew that this journey had only just begun. He was ready to face whatever came next, carrying his music, his heart, and his dreams into a future full of possibility. The winter recital was approaching, and the academy was buzzing with activity. Students practiced in every room, their fingers flying over the keys, rehearsing difficult passages, and perfecting each note. The boy felt both excitement and nervousness. This recital was important. It would showcase his progress and give him a chance to demonstrate not only his skill but also the emotion he poured into every piece he played. He had been chosen to perform a particularly challenging composition, one that would test both his technical ability and his interpretive power. He practiced for hours each day, sometimes losing himself entirely in the music, feeling it rise and fall beneath his fingers as if it were alive. But as the days passed, he began to notice a change in the atmosphere around him. The confident student, who had always been distant but watchful, began to act differently. There were whispers, glances exchanged behind his back, and a subtle tension in the hallways. The boy felt it, though he couldn't understand fully what it meant. He tried to focus on the music, but the energy around him was unsettling. One afternoon, while he was practicing a difficult passage, he noticed that the piano sounded slightly off. The notes didn't ring as they should, some keys responding differently than usual. He frowned, checking the instrument carefully, but it seemed fine. Shrugging it off, he continued to play, but an uneasy feeling settled in his chest. On the night before the recital, he stayed late in the music room, rehearsing one final time. The janitor passed by, giving him an encouraging smile, and reminded him to rest and eat something before the big day. He nodded, grateful, but his mind kept returning to the strange sounds in the piano. Little did he know that same night, a few students had sneaked into the music hall. Their intention was clear, to make sure that he would falter in front of the audience. They adjusted the tuning pins and dampers subtly, so that the piano would not respond properly, hoping to disrupt his performance. It was a quiet, calculated act, invisible to anyone who wasn't paying close attention. The next morning, he arrived at the recital hall, heart pounding. The hall was grand, larger than any he had ever played in, with a high ceiling and walls lined with polished wood. Rows of chairs were set up for the audience, and a stage with a single piano awaited him. He felt a mixture of awe and anxiety as he walked to the piano and settled on the bench. Taking a deep breath, he placed his fingers on the keys. The first notes came out wrong, slightly off, the sound jarring and uneven. He froze for a moment, panic rising. The audience was quiet, watching him expectantly. He could feel the eyes of the other students, some filled with curiosity, some with judgment. The confident student stood at the back, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. For a moment he considered stopping, leaving the stage or asking to start over. But then he remembered all the nights he had spent practicing, the struggles he had overcome, and the encouragement he had received from the janitor and his supportive teachers. He realized that the audience wasn't there to see perfection. They were there to hear music that spoke from the heart. Closing his eyes, he let the panic go. He began to play again, this time adjusting to the broken piano. Each note that came out wrong he transformed into something new, weaving the mistakes into the music, letting improvisation guide him. The melody shifted and flowed, unpredictable yet beautiful, carrying the depth of emotion he had lived through in his short life. The audience, initially startled by the uneven notes, became silent and attentive. They listened as the music evolved into something entirely unique, a performance that was raw, honest, and full of feeling. Even the confident student at the back of the hall paused, caught off guard by the beauty and originality of the boy's improvisation. It was as if the piano had become an extension of his emotions, and every challenge it presented became a way for him to express something deeper than technical skill could convey. When the final notes faded into silence, the hall was still for a moment, as if everyone was holding their breath. Then, slowly, applause began, gentle at first, then growing into a strong, heartfelt ovation. The boy opened his eyes, astonished at the reaction. He had expected embarrassment, criticism, perhaps even laughter, but instead, He was met with appreciation for his courage, creativity, and emotional honesty. Teachers nodded approvingly, some with tears in their eyes, recognizing that what they had witnessed was not just a performance, but a demonstration of resilience and artistry. After the recital, backstage was a flurry of activity. Students congratulated each other, teachers offered feedback, and the boy quietly gathered his things. The janitor found him and smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "See what happens when you trust yourself?" he said softly. The boy nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with applause or recognition. It was the feeling of having stayed true to himself, of having turned a difficult situation into something meaningful. Later that evening, the principal of the academy requested to see him. The boy entered the office, nervous again, expecting perhaps a discussion about what had gone wrong. Instead, the principal greeted him warmly and commended his handling of the situation. The sabotage had been discovered. The tuning issues with the piano were traced back to the students who had tampered with it. They were disciplined, and the academy took steps to ensure fairness and integrity in all future performances. But more importantly, the principal emphasized that the boy had shown extraordinary composure and creativity under pressure. His performance had not just survived the sabotage. It had transformed it into something extraordinary. The boy felt a sense of relief and pride. It wasn't just about winning or proving himself to the other students. It was about recognizing his own strength and potential. He had faced adversity, both subtle and deliberate, and had found a way to rise above it. That night, as he returned to his room, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. The foster homes, the long nights of practice, the moments of doubt and fear, and realized that each of these experiences had prepared him for exactly this challenge. In the days that followed, word of his performance spread throughout the academy. Teachers and students alike spoke of the courage and skill he had displayed. Some of the students who had been distant or critical began to approach him with respect, curious to learn from someone who could turn a broken instrument into a source of beauty. Even the confident student, whose initial rivalry had driven much of the tension, seemed to view him differently now, with a sense of acknowledgement for the talent and determination he had witnessed. Despite the attention and praise, the boy remained humble. He continued to practice diligently, not for recognition, but for the love of music and the desire to grow. He understood that challenges would continue to arise, both on the stage and in life, but he also knew that he had learned an invaluable lesson. That resilience, creativity, and faith in oneself could overcome even deliberate obstacles. The music room, once a place of practice and learning, had become a sanctuary where he could express everything he felt and find strength in his own abilities. Through this experience, he also began to mentor other students who were struggling, offering encouragement and guidance much like the janitor had done for him. He shared the lesson that mistakes were not failures, but opportunities to find new paths, to discover voices within music that might otherwise remain hidden. His story became an example within the academy, showing that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of heart, courage, and perseverance that truly defined a musician. And so, the winter recital became more than just a performance. It became a turning point, a moment when the boy's inner strength and musical passion were recognized and celebrated. He had faced sabotage, adversity, and doubt, and had transformed them into an unforgettable performance. His journey continued, now with a renewed sense of purpose, confidence, and hope, ready to face whatever challenges the academy and the wider world would bring, guided always by the music that had carried him through every struggle. After the winter recital, the academy seemed to be a different place. The boy walked through the hallways, feeling a quiet pride, but also aware that his journey was far from over. The sabotage had been discovered, and the students responsible had been disciplined. Yet, he noticed how subtle glances and whispered conversations followed him, a reminder that jealousy and rivalry still lingered. He didn't let it bother him. Instead, he focused on what mattered most: his music and the lessons he could learn from every experience. Teachers approached him with encouragement, praising the emotion and creativity he had shown during the recital. Some offered new pieces to challenge him, pushing him to grow and refine his skills even further. The janitor, ever present and supportive, left a note on the piano one morning. "You have a gift that cannot be taken away. Keep sharing it." These small gestures became a source of strength, reminding him that recognition didn't always come from applause. Sometimes it came from those who quietly believed in him. The confident student, once a rival, began to act differently as well. He no longer whispered or mocked. Instead, there was a subtle acknowledgement in his gaze when the boy played, a silent recognition of talent and perseverance. This shift in attitude did not erase the tension entirely, but it showed that respect could grow even in unexpected places. The boy felt a mix of relief and determination, knowing that he still had to work hard to prove himself, not to others, but to himself. The principal of the academy called him into the office one afternoon. The boy approached with a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. The principal, a stern but fair figure, smiled warmly and spoke with a sense of pride. "Your performance showed more than skill," he said. "It showed resilience, creativity, and heart. Those are qualities that cannot be taught. We want you to represent the academy at the upcoming national competition." The boy's heart skipped a beat. A mix of excitement and anxiety filled him. This was an opportunity he had dreamed of, a chance to show the world what he could do. But the thought of performing on such a grand stage also brought fear. Over the following weeks, the boy dedicated himself to preparation. He spent hours in the music room, refining each piece, exploring different interpretations, and practicing until his fingers and mind were in harmony. He experimented with expression and dynamics, discovering ways to make the music feel alive, to tell stories through sound. His passion for music deepened, and his confidence grew with each practice session. The janitor continued to leave notes of encouragement, each one a reminder of the journey that had brought him here and the power of persistence. At the same time, he noticed subtle changes among the other students. Some who had been distant or critical now approached him with curiosity, asking questions about his technique or seeking advice. Even the confident student engaged in quiet conversations about music, sharing insights and listening to the boy's perspective. These interactions, though small, helped him feel a growing sense of belonging within the academy. He realized that respect and recognition were earned not through rivalry or comparison, but through dedication, passion, and the courage to remain true to oneself. The boy's teachers also played an important role in his growth. They provided guidance on performance techniques, interpretation, and stage presence, but also emphasized the importance of emotion and authenticity in music. One teacher told him, "The notes are only the beginning. Your music becomes meaningful when it carries your heart and your story." This advice resonated deeply with him. He understood that the national competition was not just about technical perfection. It was about connecting with the audience, conveying something real and human through his performance. As the day of the national competition approached, the boy felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. He knew that the stakes were high, but he also trusted in the preparation and experience that had brought him to this point. He thought about the struggles he had faced, the obstacles he had overcome, and the music that had been his companion through it all. These reflections strengthened his resolve and gave him a sense of calm confidence. On the morning of the competition, he arrived at the concert hall early, taking in the grandeur of the space. The stage was large, with bright lights and rows of seats stretching into the distance. The piano waited, its polished surface reflecting the stage lights. He approached it with a mixture of reverence and determination, knowing that this was an opportunity to share not just his skill, but his story. The hall was silent as he took his place on the bench, the audience waiting in anticipation. He began to play, and the music filled the hall with emotion and energy. Every note was carefully considered, yet infused with feeling and spontaneity. The audience responded, leaning forward, captivated by the depth and authenticity of the performance. Even the most experienced judges were drawn in, recognizing the unique combination of technical skill and emotional resonance. The boy's fingers moved with confidence, each movement a reflection of his journey, his struggles, and his growth. Throughout the performance, he felt a sense of connection with the music that went beyond technique. He remembered the nights of practice, the encouragement from the janitor, the guidance of his teachers, and the challenges he had faced from his peers. All of these experiences came together in the music, giving it a richness and depth that could not be replicated. When the final note echoed through the hall, there was a moment of silence, as if the audience were absorbing the power of what they had just heard. Then, applause erupted, filling the space with energy and admiration. After the performance, the boy received congratulations from teachers, judges, and fellow students. Many praised not just his skill, but the courage and emotional authenticity he had displayed. The principal of the academy approached him once again, smiling with pride. "You have represented the academy with honor," he said. "Your music has spoken louder than any words, and you have shown what it means to persevere." The boy felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. He had faced adversity, uncertainty, and doubt, and had emerged stronger and more confident. In the days that followed, he continued to practice and grow, using the experience of the national competition as motivation to explore new pieces, techniques, and expressions. He shared his insights with other students, offering encouragement and guidance, becoming a quiet mentor and role model within the academy. His journey had transformed him not just as a musician, but as a person, teaching him the value of resilience, authenticity, and the power of following one's passion. The turning point had come, not through accolades or recognition alone, but through the realization that strength, courage, and dedication could overcome obstacles, and that true talent was measured not only by skill, but by the heart and perseverance behind it. The boy's story became an inspiration within the academy, demonstrating that adversity could be transformed into opportunity, that challenges could be met with creativity and determination, and that music could serve as both a refuge and a means of expression. As he walked through the halls, piano lessons and rehearsals continued, but the boy carried with him a newfound confidence and clarity. He had faced sabotage, rivalry, and self-doubt, and had turned them into a performance that spoke to the very soul of music itself. The academy had seen not just a talented student, but a resilient, determined young musician with a passion that could not be contained. And as he sat at the piano each day, he played not just for recognition or success, but for the joy of creating, the beauty of expression, and the truth that could be conveyed through music. The turning point had arrived, and he was ready for the next chapter of his journey. The day of the national competition arrived, and the boy felt a mixture of nerves, excitement, and determination. He had worked tirelessly for weeks, perfecting his pieces, refining his technique, and deepening the emotional connection to each note. Every practice session, every small triumph, and every moment of doubt had led him to this stage. The concert hall was vast and impressive, filled with rows of seats, bright lights, and a sense of anticipation that could be felt in the air. The piano on the stage gleamed under the lights, inviting him to bring his music to life. He stepped onto the stage, took a deep breath, and sat at the piano. The audience was silent, waiting for him to begin. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the memory of all the challenges he had overcome wash over him. The foster homes, the quiet nights of practice, the whispers of doubt, and the sabotage at the academy. All of it had shaped him into the musician he had become. His fingers touched the keys, and the first notes emerged, clear and confident. The music flowed naturally, each phrase telling a story of struggle, perseverance, and hope. As he played, he felt the audience being drawn into his performance. The notes were precise, yet filled with emotion, capturing the essence of every experience that had brought him to this moment. His heart beat in rhythm with the music, and he allowed himself to be fully present, trusting in the years of practice and the depth of his passion. Each crescendo, each soft passage, was a reflection of his journey, a testament to the strength and resilience he had discovered within himself. The other competitors had performed well, but there was a quiet uniqueness to his music that set him apart. He played not to impress judges or win accolades, but to express something true and human. The music resonated in the hall, touching the hearts of those who listened. The judges, experienced and discerning, were visibly moved, recognizing not only his technical skill but the emotional depth of his performance. The boy felt a sense of calm and clarity as he continued, knowing that he had given his best, and that the music was a reflection of his own story. As the final notes echoed through the concert hall, there was a moment of silence, as if the audience collectively held their breath, savoring the beauty of what they had heard. Then, applause erupted, growing louder and more enthusiastic, filling the hall with energy and admiration. The boy opened his eyes, taking in the reaction, feeling a sense of fulfillment and pride that went beyond recognition or reward. He had faced obstacles, doubt, and adversity, and had transformed them into a performance that was both powerful and authentic. After the performance, the judges approached him with praise and encouragement. They highlighted his technical precision, the emotional depth of his interpretation, and the courage he had shown in presenting a piece with such honesty. Teachers from his academy, as well as other students, offered congratulations, their faces filled with admiration and respect. The boy felt a warmth and joy that was deeper than any applause, the satisfaction of knowing that he had remained true to himself and to his music. Back at the academy, word of his achievement spread quickly. Students who had once been distant or skeptical now approached him with curiosity and respect. Some asked for advice, wanting to understand how he had cultivated such skill and composure. The confident student, who had once viewed him as a rival, approached with a quiet acknowledgement, nodding in respect and offering congratulations. The boy accepted the gesture with grace, understanding that competition could coexist with recognition and admiration. The principal of the academy met him with pride and encouragement. "You have represented the academy with honor," he said. "Your performance has shown what true talent and perseverance can achieve. You have inspired not only your peers but all of us." The boy felt a deep sense of gratitude, realizing that his journey had touched more lives than he had imagined. It was not just about winning. It was about showing the power of resilience, courage, and dedication. Over the following weeks, the boy continued to practice and explore new pieces, driven by a desire to grow and express himself through music. He shared his experiences with other students, mentoring those who faced challenges or doubted their own abilities. He emphasized the importance of patience, perseverance, and authenticity, encouraging others to embrace their own unique paths. His story became a source of inspiration, demonstrating that true success was measured not just by accolades, but by the ability to overcome obstacles and remain true to oneself. The boy also reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He remembered the foster homes, the moments of loneliness, the small victories, and the people who had supported him along the way. Each experience had contributed to his growth, shaping his character and his music. He realized that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of effort, resilience, and heart that made a difference. Music had been both his refuge and his expression, allowing him to convey what words could not. As he returned to the academy's music room, he sat at the piano and began to play for himself, not for an audience or a competition, but simply for the joy of music. The notes filled the room, carrying the stories of his journey, the struggles and triumphs, and the hope that had guided him through every challenge. He felt a deep connection to the music, a sense of peace and fulfillment that came from doing what he loved most. Through this experience, he learned the true meaning of triumph. It was not just about recognition or winning awards. It was about the courage to face adversity, the determination to persevere, and the willingness to express oneself honestly. The challenges he had faced, from subtle rivalry to deliberate sabotage, had strengthened him, teaching lessons that would remain with him for a lifetime. His music had become a voice for his experiences, a bridge between his heart and the world around him. The boy's journey continued, each day bringing new challenges and opportunities for growth. He approached his practice with renewed dedication, exploring new techniques, compositions, and interpretations. He built connections with other students, forming friendships based on mutual respect and shared passion. The academy became a place not just of learning, but of collaboration, inspiration, and community. Looking back on his path, the boy understood that every obstacle he had faced had contributed to his triumph. The foster homes, the doubts, the sabotage, and the rivalry had all played a role in shaping his character and his music. He realized that true success was not measured solely by external recognition, but by the ability to overcome challenges, remain authentic, and find joy in one's own passion. And so, the boy's story became one of inspiration and hope, a reminder that talent, when combined with perseverance, courage, and heart, can overcome adversity. He had shown that even in the face of sabotage and doubt, one could rise above, transform challenges into opportunities, and touch the hearts of others through honesty and expression. His triumph was not just a victory on stage, but a testament to the power of resilience, dedication, and the unbreakable spirit of someone who refused to give up on their dreams. As he sat at the piano each day, the boy continued to play, letting his music tell stories of struggle, hope, and triumph. He played for himself, for those who had supported him, and for anyone who needed to hear that it was possible to overcome obstacles and achieve greatness. His journey had reached a significant milestone, but it was only the beginning. With every note, he carried forward the lessons, the courage, and the inspiration that had brought him this far, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him, and always guided by the music that had given him strength and purpose.